New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you over here.
And Rev B over here. Hi, I'm Reverend Elizabeth Cantey.
And this is New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Happens every Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. A chance for me and normally my co-host, Reverend Elzia, to get together with some most amazing guests. However, Rev Z is out today, and I leaned in on a dear friend, Rev B, to step in and support us in this interview. And I'm telling you, folks, I made a really wise decision. Based on the pregame interview, you are in for a ride. This is going to be a great conversation here today. So let's start by saying just welcome to Rev B.
Yes. So glad to be here, Rev Brisk. So glad to be here. Always having fun on the New Thought Media Network. And I'm excited to get to know Elizabeth better. So that's awesome.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So, Rev Elizabeth, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you are in the world, what we need to know to get to know you just a little bit before we dive into all this goodiness we're talking about.
Oh, thank you. I'm just excited to be here. I am Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Cantey. I've written a book called Living Enlightened, The Joy of Integrating Spirit, Mind, and Body, because that's what I love. I'm an author, speaker, inner transformation coach, and my work is dedicated to helping people integrate spirit, mind, and body in order to live each day with that deep sense of purpose, passion, and fulfillment. I love helping people love their life and live their passion, because that's what I do. I like it.
Beautiful. I have your book, and I'm going to be brutally honest with myself. I have not read all of it yet. I feel like I'm a little behind on that one, but I do have a copy, and I pick it up every so often and get into it. And everything I've read so far, I really love. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
I love that. Thank you. Well, originally I wrote it for my son. We almost started talking about this before. He's about to be 21. And there was a time where he doesn't want to listen to his mom, obviously. Who does, really, at that age? And so I kind of was thinking if there was anything I could share with him, anything that I could leave. What is the legacy? What would I want him to know while he's not listening to me? You know, and I could put it all together in one little package and leave it somewhere, you know, like, and that's this book. It's really how I came to understand and then live these spiritual principles and practices. And it's, for me personally, I think it's an easy book. I think it's pretty simple and clear. And he says he loves it. I think he's only on chapter 3. I'm like, honey, you really should read a book that's dedicated to you. I mean, you're in that dedication. You really should read. You should just feel a little obligated, but yeah.
Are you talking to me, or are you talking to your son there?
My son, for sure. But I will say that if it, of course, I feel like if these principles and practices really helped me in my life, and I know that they've helped Max. He grew up with these ideas, really, and and they could just help anyone, put in a simplified form, and I hope obviously a little entertaining. And then there's some exercises, just a few, meditations or exercises that came to me to experience what I'm talking about. In other words, the experience came to me, and then I was able to, either after the experience, very soon after, or a while after, write about it. Then the words came. So it's the experience of feeling wholeness and oneness and that unity consciousness, feeling love and peace and joy. And then what happens is you feel love, peace, and joy no matter whatever is showing up in your life. And we know pretty much anything can show up in your life. Just the way life
is. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think when we talk to our kids, they hear wah wah wah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I love that we're on the subject of kids, because I have two very special kids myself, one in college and one in high school. And my eldest, this past year, was asked to give a short talk, a power talk at the Center for Spiritual Living Convention on behalf of teen leadership. And as a papa, that's like, oh, this is a proud moment. And I kept stepping in, not overbearing, but step and say, hey, if you need help, let me know. Or if you want to know how to approach your audience, let me know. And at some point he did come to me and did ask for some support and advice. And I gave him all of that. And then when I sat down to watch his talk, because he didn't show it to me ahead of time, he did none of what I talked about. He used none of my advice, but it was still a great talk. It was really, and we still get compliments on it today. And that was when I was the proudest, because I was like, wait a minute, it really did sink in.
Yeah.
All these years of praying at the table, all these years of saying the right thing in the right moment, of reinforcing this philosophy, even when they don't want it, even when they're saying, no, sticking to our truth really did influence that generation. That feels important.
Absolutely.
I think the big thing is they learn less from what we say and more from what we model. And so, right, they see us. So we got to be walking our talk.
Well, I will say, since I know he won't see this, he calls me every day.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that.
Because he knows, I know that he knows what I'm going to say, because I can't say anything that's out of alignment with, who I am. And so I know that what he's looking for is that consistency of who I am. But once in a while, he'll be like, I know what you're going to say. And I go, well, I won't say that then, but I'll say this.
But I'll say it another way.
I'll say this instead. I love it.
Exactly. Quick shout out to Shay, watching from Colorado. Good afternoon, Shay. Glad you're with us. Anyone else out there wondering what you've stumbled into today? This is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. My special co-host is Reverend B, and our guest is Reverend Dr. Elizabeth. And we've already been talking about parenting, and we haven't talked about any of the stuff we talked about in the pregame show, which is how I love this conversation, folks, because we're here to look at what is really the growing edge, the emerging edge, and an emerging vision for how this mighty philosophy, New Thought, impacts humanity's evolution, humanity's expression in the world. And what better way to do that than talking about what's really real and what's really going on in our lives?
Yeah.
I think it's super important.
And being willing to be in the mess, because there always will be some of that. And to be with it and to maintain the integrity of our beliefs and our values, and to stand tall for what it is that we know is best. And, it's like the idea of love, which I see as oneness. When we really sort of comprehend that and begin to live from there, we create a whole new way of being. Rather than reactive, we become very proactive in all that we do, which comes from that energy of oneness. I need to care for my brother and sister, my family, the people of this planet, including animals, plants, all of it in order to create a world that truly is sustainable. It takes all of us to do our piece.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yes. Well, and it's so true, because I think that's how we know when we're really living the principles. Is there are times in my life where I've just contracted, I'm just pulled in, and needed to lick my wounds and heal and learn and that. But when Robert, you said growing edge, it's when I am able to open after the healing, after that, and expand, and the heart expands to include, at first just a little bit, my family or my past or my history, whatever it is, and then it expands more and expands more, and you realize that oneness and the fullness of life is right where we are in whatever is showing up in that moment. And that could be what other people would say is not very pleasant or not fun, or not, they won't call it good, but we call it, it's calling out for us to love it and each other and all of it.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to do, but it's imperative.
Yeah,
exactly. And you just brought up, I think, a very, very important point is my wife brought this to me recently, and that is the practice of seeing good. And how, when you get into this movement and you get started with this philosophy, people say things like, it's all good. And that becomes part of the vernacular, and then part of people, and then we pull that apart and say, yeah, but is it? And there are messinesses in life, and there are things that don't appear that. And so is it a spiritual bypass to just say it's all good? And it leads down this rabbit hole where what she did is she came to me and she said, but we always have to go back to the point of remembering there is good here. I may not like it. I may not agree with it. That's my humanness. I may not want to teach it or keep it moving forward, but there has got to be something good in each and every experience. So can I meet what's happening in this moment with that sense of wonder, that sense of question? So sometimes it's like, oh, good. And sometimes it's like, good? Good. But if we can stay in that curiosity, then we have the opportunity to see it.
And a willingness to be teachable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and there's that bit of faith too, because as you said, Rev Robert, if there was a point in my life when I understood that everything I had been through had been for my highest good, for what I had asked for myself. It all led me to my highest good. But when something happens and you go, but not this, and then, but when you understand it, you go, I know I'm going to look back and I'm going to find something good, even if I can't see it right now. So there's something that happens where we can remind ourselves, and it's a practice, it's a teaching that, to even when I don't see it, I know there's good here. And so there's no spiritual bypass. There's a spiritual inquiry. There's it's like going in, as you said, with the eyes of a child to say, what is this? Why are you here? I welcome you. I don't want to, but I have no choice. I welcome you. I'm going to explore you and figure you out, and then hopefully bless you and let you go.
Yeah, because whatever we resist persists.
Yes.
That's what people forget sometimes, is we're resistant to that, what we call is bad. But the truth is, as long as we're resisting it, man, it is stuck like glue. And until we surrender into the bigger picture and be willing to, say to yourself, okay, this is taking me somewhere. So let me be with it. Let me be with my humanity, knowing that my essence, my soul self knows exactly what's going on. And this is the redirect that will get me there. And that's a little hard to swallow some days, but it is absolute absolute fact. One of the great spiritual teachers, I can't remember which one, Emma Curtis Hopkins or Mary Baker Eddy or somebody, said, "I demand to see the good in this."
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Demand it. If not today, then tomorrow.
No, today.
Right now.
Right now. I want to see that right now. I think sometimes I've heard, and I know I've done it, and I know I've experienced it. We can get complacent with that, or whatever's good for you, like that. Oh yeah, okay. I want it right now, but I'm willing to take it tomorrow if that's what's in the highest and the best. And I question: are we not lessening our power? Are we not impeding the divine circuitry and the divine flow by putting, well, right there, we're putting a limiter on our good and when we want it. And that's an important part.
Yeah, we don't believe it's possible. That's a lack of faith in that statement. It's like, we have a way of being sometimes where everything we want, we've got this idea, okay, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm saying my affirmation, how come it's not here? And in the same breath we go, oh, well, it must be God's will. Well, God is being you, so honey, wake up, check in, just know that somewhere in you, you're saying no.
Yeah,
And
two separate
having
wills.
that understanding, change the perspective.
Yeah, there's not two separate wills. Well, I think too that for me, it's our willingness to go into the silence, the stillness, because all the thoughts around this is bad, this is hurting me, even that thought, I'll challenge you just a little bit, the thought of I need to know, or I need to see the, whatever it's as long as it's a thought coming from sort of our finite mind, the ego mind, that mind. But in the stillness, Rebbe, you said, the spirit knows all the time, every moment. But are we willing to be still and know? And then sometimes when we feel like the knowing's not coming, then just be still and be quiet. It's like it's there. So when that channel opens up, it's always been there. It's just when are we going to kind of recognize it, have it flow through? Because spirit is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. It doesn't say I'm not telling you now. I'm not telling you.
I'm going to withhold for a while. That's what I'm doing.
We do that. We do,
all the time. Yeah. One of the greatest practices that I was given, I'm also ordained in Unity. And when I did my Unity ordination, one of the teachers in a meditation thing said, and this was during COVID, so it wasn't the easiest thing to do, but she said, I want you to take 24 hours and go away somewhere in absolute silence and just be. And so I was able to rent a hotel room and just, put the do not disturb sign out and put my phone away. And for 24 hours, just simply be breathing and meditation and napping. And I did a little bit of journaling, but I didn't have music. I didn't have anything that could be a distraction. And what was interesting in that process is just coming to a place of meeting me where I am and getting okay with that. And then asking myself the question, and now what? What is my growing edge? As Rev Bruce said earlier, what is that growing edge? So this is an exciting teaching. It doesn't have borders and boundaries unless we think it does.
Right. I love the growing edge terminology as well. Just the growing edge, expanding and expanding. And then what's there? What's there for me on that growing edge? And there's that new thought, that new idea, the new inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah. A new vision.
A new vision.
And we're saying this. I'm looking at a very old water bamboo plant that I have on my desk here, and been around for years and years and years. And right now, the bottom 3 leaves are getting a little brown. And I know it's got enough. I know it's got enough water. It's very tall, and I actually have a string off the ceiling to keep the top of the plant from drooping over and all that. And it's that place where we don't grow where we've already been.
Mm-hmm.
We grow where we aren't. We grow into our potential and where we're not. And in that, we have to let go of those older things. We have to let go of the what no longer serves. I've always loved that, and that's an old ancient line, and I don't know where we picked up as well. But to cast back into the nothingness from whence it came, all that which no longer serves.
Yeah.
So as we talk about our own individual growing edge, and in the next segment, folks, we're going to talk about the growing edge of the movement. As we talk about these growing edges, I always like to remember that it's an inside job, but it's pushing us into places we've never been.
Yeah.
And in that, I can't always know what's going to happen or how it's going to happen or who's going to show up, but we have to have that really deep trust, that really deep faith that God's got our back on this one.
And we're never going to know. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month. We have no idea. None. We don't know our time here. And that's what makes life so exciting.
I think so too.
Yeah, we don't have the answers. It's a beautiful thing. It's for me, it's, I have 4 children and all of them very different. And of course, the youngest one I had when I was very old. And so I'm a different person with her than I was with the other 3. And as I watch her developing, she's 18 now, it's like I'm in awe of the difference in character because she was raised in this teaching. And that has caused her to be a fierce advocate for all people and for a way of life that honors the individuality of each person and accepts them, even when we don't understand them. We still have to be in that place of oneness. We're all part of it. Let's love. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you said that. My son is very much the same way. He something about this generation. They don't have some of the hang-ups. Is that a terrible word? I don't know. Some of the, preconceived ideas, judgments, ideas that we have to fit in or to look a certain way or to, be a certain way. And they are talking about growing edge, man. They're exploring. They're I forgot what my son calls himself sometimes. Psychonaut. They're astronauts are exploring the psyche and the, the mind and what's it all about. It from a completely different place. And I don't understand sometimes, but that's okay too, because he's very happy to explain to me. And I'm very happy to try to grasp it. I really am.
Yeah, which is good for us, for sure. And I think they're definitely on the growing edge because they're the ones who aren't, most of them, or a lot of them anyway, I know my daughter and her friends, they don't necessarily agree with you just because you're older, just because you're the principal of the school or you're the head of government or whatever. They're like, and they have got their own very strong feeling about social justice, etc., which is powerful.
It strikes me we all have 18-year-olds, and so I know from my parenting experience, not knowing what I was doing, but knowing how I was brought up, and knowing that I didn't have sign language on videotape, on DVDs when I was a kid, and my kids did. My kids learned how to communicate with at least my wife and I, and very earlier than most children learn to communicate with their parents. And I look at this is really the first generation that's coming to adulthood and coming into their own power that have been brought up with technology.
Yes.
My 18-year-old, while we avoided the phone as long as we could, it didn't mean there wasn't computers and there wasn't technological learning and there wasn't a greater understanding of the expanse and the variety of life, if we will. And they're coming into their own with a much, much different upbringing by necessity, and in our cases by choice, because the three of us each chose to bring that spiritual piece to it as well. Now we see the same phenomenon in kids that are of the same age but didn't have this philosophy, had a bit more perhaps aggression or a bit more racism or a bit more misogyny in their upbringing, and by no fault of their own, that gets amplified with the technology. So it's in many ways reassuring to know that it's our kids that are going to take over.
Get out and vote.
Oh God, yeah, right.
Yeah, please.
My 18-year-old is that's, I think, the thing that our eldest turned 18 in June, so he's just over the moon thrilled that he's not real thrilled about the choices he's going to have, but from what he sees right now, but thrilled to get out and vote.
Yeah, my daughter voted for the first time in the spring. She turned 18 in March, and then we had a mayoral election, and she was thrilled to be able to get out and vote. And after she voted, everybody cheered and applauded, and she was a little embarrassed, but but you could tell she was really happy to have the ability to say, here's what I see for my future. So yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, you know what came to me as you were speaking, Rev Robert, is, you know, I grew up with my parents and my grandparents and their history, and that, you know, I remember, you know, these ideas from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, my great grandmother, and all these concepts, all these ideas, and they didn't grow, you know, they that lopped off a little bit, and then they added all that technology. They can Google anything. They don't go ask their great grandmother, you know, or telling stories about the Civil War. I mean, you know, it's like they're in a whole nother. Gosh, it's really amazing, and it's up to us to move with them. You know, life is moving, and they're it.
Yeah.
You know, they're not hanging back in those paradigms of the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. You know, they've moved on, and we've got to keep up and figure some things out.
It opened a wealth of different opportunities on how to define success. And success is not two kids and a white picket fence anymore. Success is not the 9-to-5, husband has the good corporate job and mom's staying at home with the kids. Success looks the avenues to success, I think, are so diverse now that they don't have to buy into all that old stuff. They don't have
amazing. Yeah. They are creating their own.
Yeah.
It's like we're not buying into that. We don't know what it is yet, but we're going to make it. We're going to create it. We're going to just do something, and it's going to fail or not fail. And so many of them are succeeding, these young people, in things that I could never have imagined. You know, you just couldn't imagine getting paid for living in a van. You know? Wow, I would have done that. I so would have done that. You know, traveling across the country or living on a sailboat, or, I mean, and I'm stating some of the more obvious things, but there's so many of those things, so many that they're creating things that did not exist. I would say even 5 years ago, and certainly 25 years ago.
I lived in a van for a couple of summers, but they just called me a dirty hippie.
That's what I mean.
We didn't have internet. We didn't have social media. I wasn't an influencer. I was just a dirty hippie. You know. Hey, folks, if you wonder what you stumbled into, this is New Thought Today on the New Thought Media Network. And with that bad joke, we're going to take a quick break and let a couple of our sponsors say hello and give our guests a chance to take a breather and a drink of water. But we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends to come join us for the next segment, because if you thought that was fun, just hold on. We're going to get into a really cool conversation right after the break, and it leads in perfectly with where we've been, where the youth have brought us, and where the youth are taking us. So we'll be right back after this.
Blessings, everybody. My name is Jafon Seeley. Could you imagine what is actually possible when we start honoring and recognizing our inherent worth, realizing that we are that which is assisting and co-creating our experience? And with that understanding, start recognizing that every human, every individual, everything that we interact with reflects that same inherent worth.
It's not about an adventure, it's about the atmosphere of the consciousness of adventure, the lifestyle of adventure. How many people would say that their lifestyle is adventurous?
My name is Lisa Benson. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and the author of Anchored in Bias, Fired Over White Tears. It's a book detailing my lived experiences with workplace bias and what fueled my passion for normalizing conversations about differences and creating safe spaces for everyone to bring the best version of themselves to life every day.
And we're back with more of the New Thought Today here on New Thought Media Network. And I just got to say, before we launch into this next segment here, I'm super excited for the ANTN Festival that we just ran a promo for. And there is still room to register. You can register as a virtual attendee only, or if you want to go for the whole kit and caboodle, we've still got space at the New Thought Media Network house. So if you're having any good fun here on New Thought Media Network, you might want to consider coming in person and coming and rooming with us in the Airbnb. We're going to have a good old time that week. Lots of special things going on. So join us for that. All right. So now into our next conversation. I want to set this up just a little bit. There is a thing out there in the world, folks, called the listserv. And for anyone that's a CSL minister, they just giggled and smiled like these two did, because it is a private Google group that is purely and completely for Centers for Spiritual Living ministers. And we get into some interesting conversations in this. And as you might imagine, a bunch of colleagues, and we live in a world where we value the differing of opinions, and boy, did we have a conversation this week that had a number of differing opinions, and it all really does center around what we're talking about with the youth. So our next generation of ministers, young ministers, put together an annual retreat for what we call the Next Gen Conversation community. And they used a term on their marketing flyer that pushed a few buttons or two. And the letters they used were AF. So anybody under a certain age probably knows what AF stands for in the texting world, let's say. But I'm not going to say the word here because this is not the show to say that on. But they did also on their flyer use the languaging awesomely fabulous, I think is how it was phrased. So Let's have a conversation around the importance of words and the interpretation of words. Is it appropriate to change our approach in our marketing to attract, let's say, a younger generation?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have to, do like Ernest Holmes suggested and be open at the top. And that means we have to be willing to let go of some things and to embrace others. And they did define AF at the top of that flyer, not as the vernacular of the day. So for me, I sit back and go, so whose mind was it that went the other way?
we can look that up.
I'm just gonna say, of course. But I thought it was absolutely fabulous that they were using some clever marketing to people who could understand what it means, and meaning their own age and younger. And when they said something about BS, your belief system, of course.
Yeah.
Or most of us know what that means. But I'm like, yes, because if it appeals to me, it's not going to appeal to my son. And if it appeals to my mom, it's not going to appeal to my son. And who are we trying to get? My mom already comes and sees me talk. He's already there. We have plenty of people my age, but it's very, like I said, my son will speak a language that I'm not quite understanding sometimes. Let them speak their language. Let them call each other out. I think the other symbol was spirit uncensored. I'm intrigued. I want to go. I want to talk about Spirit Uncensored. I want to talk about things that are hard to talk about. I would love to do that in an open, inviting, kind of charismatic, energetic environment with these young people. And it's I was going to say long overdue. It's perfect timing. It's perfect timing.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Let's get real.
Let's get real.
We've had that conversation on this program as well, right? The difference between authenticity and being real.
Yeah.
And we say it, I'm authentic, or we talk about that a lot. And I think that what a lot of the younger generation is, they want to see us being real. What does this look like when? What does this look like when you come home and your heater has gone out? What does this look like when you come home and somebody smashed a window in your car? What does this look like when you come home and things are going right, or according to your opinion? So again, I think we have a lot. It's for the longest time I thought I was a teacher, but as most teachers know, we were really the students.
Yes.
And the kids seem more than willing to step up and say, it's a new dawn, it's a new age, it's a new day, it's a new thought on how we do this, because I hear it everywhere I go. The churches are emptying out, folks.
Yes, they are. Ours included.
Yeah. There's just no question about it. We've got to do it differently.
Well, when you can Google anything, when you can look up anything, when you can ask AI anything, mostly for free, I think we were saying that, like, I went to school, graduated as a practitioner in 1998, and there was no online classes. There was nothing online. There was no online. There was no World Wide Web. There was in-person classes. Information was hard. You couldn't find most of this information in libraries, public libraries where I live were pretty small, or just on the edge of town, whatever it was. And now kids and people, adults, people who work, people who don't have time, they want to learn in a different way. And they have so many opportunities on on YouTube. And I really love what Oprah's Super Soul Sunday did for spirituality and people understanding meditation. I mean, seeing Thich Nhat Hanh on Super Soul Sunday, you know, it's like I love that Eckhart Tolle did like one of the first classes on Oprah. Like it was freaking awesome. And so now with this learning model having changed, it's them showing us what we need to do if we want to inspire them and allow them to inspire us. You know, allow them to give us their music, their EDM, electronic.
Whoa. Let's not go too quick here. Hold on.
It's not always.
I'm not ready to give up my jam bands, okay? Sorry.
Don't mess with the music. That's what I mean. And I get that because, you know, I had to go to church listening to my mom's and grandmom's music. And I'm like, that is not inspiring me. I mean, but
I never had to go to church as a kid. I'm so grateful to my agnostic father for not allowing it. It saved me years of therapy, I'm sure. Oh, listening to some of that music is like, oh. And then some of it is rich. You know, it just sort of depends on what you're listening.
I feel so blessed to have been in this movement for so many years, and there's so many wonderful musicians. But again, allowing the youth to have their music, and it is tough because sometimes my son will say, "Hey, Mom, listen to this," and I'm like, "Which one? Don't give me that bleeding ears one. Give me the one that." He's like, "No, you'll love it." He's like, "You'll love this." I'm like, "Okay." And I trust him, and he trusts me. He trusts me like what I can really hang with and what I really can't hang with. But I see him having a good time. I see him loving life. And really, ultimately, it's the teaching, not the teacher. It's the principles, not the place, meaning a church. It's the consciousness and not the words. It's community and not necessarily how we gather. And all those things, I think these kids get. They're like, we don't want that stuff that you guys do. But we do. We'll do it. We'll do it with each other and for each other.
Yeah. I think that's a huge distinction you've just made. The difference between gathering and community.
Yes.
And to me, gathering, there's an obligation. I've got to show up, and where community is always, I think, been defined a bit differently. We find community in the strangest of places, maybe sometimes.
Absolutely.
I remember years ago going to a Legion Hall. My son was performing some music there, and there was a lot of people and none that I would relate to necessarily from my spiritual perspective. And as I was sitting there watching this group of every age group, some of them like all tattooed and pierced and dressed in black, and then some people who'd obviously had a few drinks too many for many, many years, and just this real mix of people. But one thing that happened is they began to honor one person who had been badly beaten and hurt and was hospitalized. And they started talking about the love and the admiration they had for this man who never had anything, who didn't know what love was and had been beaten half to death. And just before the end of the evening, his daughter had picked him up at the hospital and brought him in. Man, the place went nuts. Like, if you were in a Catholic church and the Pope walked in, or, if we were sitting here having a conversation, all of a sudden Ernest Holmes showed up. It's like, and they him such love. And you could see this man like he had never received that before. And it changed my mind, because sometimes we go into a place and we go, well, this is not like me. No, it is. We're one. We're all like this in the mess and in the joy. And I saw such immense love there that it really helped me to redefine who I am in the world and who it is I choose to spend my time with. Am I willing to just love you where you are, as you are, without imposing my beliefs and attitudes upon you? And if we can give that to our kids, we've given them the greatest gift ever.
Beautifully stated. And ultimately, that is what we teach, to love and not expect that person to change or to adapt or to even receive the love. But we can love anyway, because we have so much of it. And those kids can do that. I can tell you better than I did at that age, for sure. And they somehow they can love themselves better than I could at that age.
It's so true. It's so true. I think we need to listen to them more and worry less about, whether or not they use a word that we call inappropriate, and instead look at what the consciousness is back of the messages that they're sharing, because their messages are very strong for, social equity and social justice and, eliminating racism and misogyny and stuff, and a place of coming together as real humanity, honoring the planet, honoring each other. There's a shift in consciousness that's happening really big, and I can't wait till they all go to the polls. It's going to make a difference.
Yes. I'm so with you in all of this, because that's my experience. That's what I've been seeing. And the kids that my kids bring home are not just flippantly swearing and cussing and they don't really do it to get a rise or to see if they can push your button. They use language very intentionally to make a point. Sometimes that point requires a little bit of shock and awe to get somebody out of their normal to listen. But it never, to me, seems grotesque.
I agree with you with that. My son, he does not censor himself for me, and I haven't figured out yet if that's good or bad.
It's interesting.
And I'm kidding, because it's good, because all I've ever wanted is for him to feel something that I didn't feel growing up through no fault of my parents, but that I wanted to be able to tell the truth. I wanted to be able to express myself. I wanted to be able to say what was going on, or what my tough decisions were, or what the peer pressures were, or not understanding certain things. And I decided when he was very young that I was going to allow him that space. Yes. And I wasn't quite sure what I was in for, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for sure.
Exactly.
And Reverend Robert, you said something to me the other day when we were talking on Saturday about my previous Friday show that really was profound for me. My guest, by the time we got to the end of the show, had developed a level of comfort and dropped a couple of F-bombs, not in a way that it was just his vernacular, right? It just came out. And so I was kind of like, oops. And Robert said, it was like he'd finally gotten comfortable to be who he is. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that's beautiful. That if we can create a space that allows someone to be who they are, to be real, whether I agree with their message, that to me was a beautiful thing. Like, you had an understanding that I hadn't gotten to. And so I really appreciated that you could see the level of his comfort and how that had occurred over that hour. So it's like, if we can create a safe space for people just to be real, to be in the mess and to love them anyway, wow, that's a world. That's a world that could really transform. And this month, in 2 days, it's the International Day of Peace.
Yes.
And how do we get there? Loving each other where we are, as we are, without undue expectation of you living my way. So,
Beautiful.
yeah. So thank you, Rev Grizz. That was beautiful.
Thank you for being willing to have those conversations and go those places. So folks, let us do a couple of really good promotions. We're not even taking shame in this. We need to promote some of this stuff that's going on. So Rev B's got 2 shows here on the network. Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Mountain. Courageous Conversations for Changing Times. Call it Spirit Cafe with her dear friend Cheryl Rogers. And I'm trying to see if I have the placard for the Joy Show in this folder, and a Friday show, Just One You, the Joy Show, that happens at 1 o'clock on Fridays, 1 o'clock Mountain Time. And we referenced Dr. Elizabeth's show earlier. That is Living Enlightened, the joy of integrating spirit, mind, and body. That happens at 7 a.m. Mountain Time on Thursdays. And I want to give you a special shout out for that. For the longest time, that Thursday morning spot was the missing tooth in our smile, as it were, in our schedule. You'd look at it, look all nice and neat. There was this big empty blank space on Thursday mornings, and you have come along and brought a real authentic smile to that time slot. And your show is so much fun. Thursdays are my day to sleep in, so I don't watch you live, but I watch you later in the morning, and every week it is a great inspiration. I'm so grateful you're a part of what we're doing here and a part of this network. So allow me to say that and say thank you and all that stuff right now.
Well, and thank you for everything that you do in your vision. It's an amazing, amazing vision. Love it.
Yes, it is.
And I did find there's the Joy Show, Just One You. Or I think I need to do a little work updating my folder here. So with that, folks, we do need to take one more quick break and say thank you to a few people and let a couple other sponsors let you know some of the things that are going on. But please don't go away. We're going to be right back with our final thoughts here on New Thought Today. Stay tuned.
I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Here and now I can see I was made beautifully. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Wish we'd all stop acting like we're strangers if we could see underneath. We are one family, and it don't matter where you come from. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one love, one love, one love. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one love. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one. What if we could rise?
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. All right, and we're back with our final segment on New Thought today. I want to give a few shout outs here. We have had my wife laughing all day, ladies. This was at 20 minutes after the hour, at 20 minutes of the hour, and also a new friend of mine, Dawn Lee Martin. Really enjoyed this. Thank you for being with us, Dawn Lee. And Laura's given us that big shout out for Elizabeth's show on Thursday morning as well. So we're really grateful to have you as part of the New Thought Media Network. All right, folks, before we run out of time, we always like to wrap this up with final thoughts. And seeing as how Reverend Barbara has had some of the best lines of the day, I'm going to go first and leave it all up to her to wrap it up at the end.
Yes.
You say yes to being a guest, and I put you to work. So, but I want to say thank you, because this is, for me, the theme that keeps emerging is allow ourselves to be led and allow ourselves to be guided. And we've got to listen more deeply. And the younger generation, my very first church in all of this, the minister said, people are coming in with an accelerated understanding of these principles. And that was 20 years ago. So I'm not sure why anybody would be surprised that the kids that are 20 years old today are kicking our butts at making all right, I'll speak for myself, are moving this philosophy forward in such powerful and dynamic ways. So let's let the kids lead. Dr. Elizabeth, how about for you? Final thoughts for today?
Yes, it was awesome. You guys are great. And, one thing we didn't get to talk about, so I'll throw it in here. And so many people ask, how do we stay relevant? Google it. Google the 20 most influential spiritual podcasts on YouTube. Google the most spiritual influential Instagram leaders. Google it. You can see exactly what these kids and young adults are going to, and you won't find, at least I didn't, a CSL ministry or community in there. And there should be. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying, we all have our place everywhere. We all do. And we're all, being our authentic self. But if you're called to wonder how to stay relevant, Google it.
My husband's favorite line is go to the Google.
I flash back to a movie where I think it was Halle Berry or somebody. The first time I ever heard the term Google it in a movie. And I was like, what does that mean?
I love it.
A long time ago now.
Well, I think, for me, final thought is listen more, listen to that deep aspect of our own self that knows who we are and where we're headed, that aspect of us that we tend to not listen to more often than not. We need to listen, taking time in the silence, and listen to the youth, pay attention to what they're saying, rather than judging and criticizing their behavior, their actions, their vernacular, the way they articulate various things. Instead, listen with a discerning heart, because we live in a divine mystery. And we cannot know it, but we can experience it as a deep and abiding love. And that is where we need to be.
Beautiful. I knew there was a good reason we saved you for last today.
Well, I can't wait to see Elizabeth's show, because, of course, that's 9 o'clock my time, 9 a.m. So.
There you go. Prime time morning spot. So. All right, folks, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to get out of here for now, let you get into the rest of your day. Please keep coming back. Spanish language programming tonight at 7 o'clock Mountain Time, and all of our normal programming tomorrow. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.